Sorry for that abrupt stop. I can't fade out that sound. Hello, hello. Let's get rocking and rolling, I suppose. So what I need to do today, maybe real quickly, is make some Nanomesh mannequins. So let's do that. I do have some resources. So I have some Andrew Loomis images from the internet here. So I'll be using this type of stuff, as well as I have how to draw comics the Marvel way. Move this out of the way. Bridgman, I think, has some stuff in there. I just grabbed some stuff off my shelf. And of course, erotic manga. Probably start there. So we'll use those. And I also have this thing, which isn't overly useful in its wooden form, but I suppose I can have it there available for me. And then these things, these little things, focus, no? These little gray posable figures. And then I got another one here that's a lot more, let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Yoink. This thing right here is very, very articulatable, and it's got fingers and toes, and the joints go all over the place. If you Google A9 rig, you can check those out. So I'll have those around. I don't know how useful they'll be necessarily for this, but for what it's worth. I'm doing good. Cool. Hey, John. Hey, the Grubber. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Yeah. Yep. Drawing comics the Marvel way, I think, has been on my shelf since the beginning. When I do a face reveal, I think I'm on there. You got to see my face real big this morning. Sorry about that. And the cool thing about this too is you do have underneath project, you do have mannequins sitting in there, and these are ZSphere mannequins. So if we go to this 8-head, I'll do 8-head female here. We can load these up, and then this is an 8-head female, and then you can just hit R to go into rotate and just grab these Z-spheres and you can rotate around. So you can go through and pose however you'd like with symmetry on, or of course you can tap X to turn symmetry off, and then you can go through here and do whatever you'd like. So turn on your floor. I'm going to go ahead and go back into document, turn my range down. So here's my pose here. You have your perspective turned on, and then you can hit BPR render. Oh, that's weird. Does it not recognize? Oh, I guess going to draw, they turned elevation to 0 for some reason. We'll put that back down to -1. So it goes to my feet. There we go. So there we go. And then you can move your light around. You can render these images out, and you can just draw over these. So that's your basic proportions there. And of course, if you hit the comma key, there's more mannequins in here. If you want to load up more of these without having to drop your project, you can go in here to load tools from project. And you can go into what? ZBrush 2021, C projects, C program files, pixel, ZBrush 2021 projects, and mannequin. And then you can just load these up. So if you want to do the 8-head man, you can load that up. And there you go. You're off to the races. And that's good enough. But let's see if we can drop this, and let me just load up my usual links here. Playlists and our station. Can I hotkey the polygroup hide invert? I already hotkeyed mask. So, oops. Make polymesh 3D. Oh my God, come on. There we go. Skin shader 4 up. Polygroup hide invert. So we have a polygroup, and we want to hide and then invert. Or I guess it would make more sense if we had a bunch of polygroups on here. and we go, okay, I want to do this one, and then hide invert, and then this one and this one. Polygroup hide. I don't know. It's too early in the morning. I don't think so, but there might. If there is, it would be probably over here underneath visibility. That's a good one. How many hours should a beginner practice ZBrush? At least 5. I have about 70% hold of ZBrush tools, but I want to create innovative concept art, not sure how to grow my skills. And the more practice, the better. How to sculpt accurate folds? Sure. Brush, cloth, I guess cloth hook. There you go. We'll go ahead and hit D for dynamic. Those look pretty accurate to me. Just notice your Squid Game models of ZBrush. Those are very cool. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they, okay, so if you missed that one, if anybody's new here, where's the best place to start? So here's on this playlist here, if you're going through and want to learn ZBrush, here's Intro to ZBrush New and Updated, and then there's the old tried and true new Intro to ZBrush Radiation playlist. And then if you want to catching the last live streams, look for the Big Blue Genie. And then Tuesdays of this week, we did Squid Games making of my Z model, just like little Squid Games mask, all the way through to render. So check those out, as well as usually on my ArtStation, you can go through here to see all the new, what's new videos. So every time, same thing on here, every time a new ZBrush release comes out, point release or otherwise, it'll be on here. So you can go through here and see like, okay, ZBrush 2021.5, what's new? And then click up here, and then there's all the 2021.5 what's new stuff. So you can look at that. When can we expect ZBrush 2022? I'll know when you all do. I don't actually work for Pixelogic. I'm just an enthusiastic young man about Pixelogic. So we have all this. We have mannequins. I'm going to go ahead and hit the comma key, go in here to project, and we're going to start with maybe a couple of these. I'm going to go in here to, I guess we'll start with the male here real quick. And we're also going to go to low and hit the comma key and go into the tool tab. And now we can grab the, I guess we can, I guess it's not in there. Ugh, it's another project. So go in the project tab here. No, I think it is in tools. Where the heck is it? Oh, there it is. On the tool tab, the anatomy model. We can load that up because that'll be good for just grabbing some quick landmarks here. And you can have the muscles on there. If you don't want to see the muscles, you can go in here to the subtool, hold down Shift, and then turn the eyeball off on the first selected subtool, which is a skeleton. And then you just got that skeleton available to you. So, again, we'll start with something. We'll start with something simple. I suppose the simplest thing you can start with, if we go back to the skeleton here, is we have X symmetry turned on. I'm going to go into BI brush insert IMM primitives, hit M on my keyboard, and we're just going to grab insert sphere or sphere 32, doesn't really matter. And then we're just going to drag that out on our skeleton here, right down the middle, and we'll just position this right here. That go down the middle, and then we're going to do a split mask points, which of course is underneath your subtool split menu here. I'm going to hold down Shift and turn off that little paintbrush, so we don't have any poly paint applied, so we can see what we have selected. And I always like to do a quick geometry modify topology mirror and weld. And when I say things like that, what I mean is geometry modify topology mirror and weld. So you can check it out there. And you know what? We'll switch back over to Skin Shader 4. Well, we're just messing around. So this will be our bean body here. Looks like my x-axis is off, so I'm going to take tap X, go out of X symmetry, hold down Alt to reset it to the world axis, and then go to Unmash Mesh Center, that little teardrop icon, and then turn X symmetry back on. Go in here to Transparent, and then now we can hold down Alt, position our pivot, and just kind of scale this around. So this can kind of be our bean body. So the bean body. And where was I looking at that? I think Paul, what's his name? Paul Richards, Paul Richards blog post from a while ago, and he's got some good bean body stuff on there. I don't know if I can link directly to it. Just Google, oh, there we go, Sequence of Invention of Magic Bean. Just Google Paul Richards Magic Bean, and you probably find it. So I've got one bean right here that's going to encapsulate the upper body, maybe a little bit higher here, and then another bean down here. And this will, we can do a little bit more of that cloth fold thing. I haven't actually practiced this or tried to do this yet, but it seems interesting in my head, so we'll give it a shot. So this will be our bean body here, but we need to merge both of these together. So I'm going to go to solo mode. One way you can do that is you can hit W, go into the gear icon, and then just do a remesh by union, and that'll remesh them. Turn on X symmetry again. And I always like to do a quick mirror and weld just to make it perfectly symmetrical. And that'll union them. And then alternatively to that, you can just go into your geometry Dynamesh and Dynamesh everything together. But either one should work. If we go into, okay, here we go. Geometry, what am I looking for here? Remesh, there's Dynamesh, so geometry. I'm going to show you guys once where all this stuff is. So there's Dynamesh here, and then ZRemesher right here. We're always in ZRemesher. We do half, depth size down to 0. The depth size down to 0 gives you nice even quads. It doesn't build in any curvature changes in your object. And there we go. So now you got one nice object here. And I'm wondering, let's open up our Dynamics tab, because right now we can bend this. Like we can go through here and we can say, okay, I'm going to turn off X symmetry. Well, first let's save. We'll go ahead and say save as. I'm just going to drop this into my streaming folder, mannequin, and we'll say bean body. Oh, my saves are taking so long. And then hit W, then Control drag up, and that'll mask as you drag up here. And then you can go through here and you can bend this thing around or twist this thing around. You can also hit W. Let's go ahead and I'm going to again reset my pivot. So it's just pointing down the body here, and we're going to go in here maybe to bend curve. So this is where you change your axis, is this one right here. So you're going to see it goes X, Y, and Z. We're going to do Y top to bottom, and then we're going to up the resolution just once, I think. So we got a top one for the head, the belly, and the butt. So as I go through here and start bending this around, you can go through and you can twist, which is nice, but you don't, it's not really bending just quite enough. Let's go in here to resolution and let's go up one more just to get a little bit more. There's more points to control, but you also get a slight bit more control, I suppose. So that's one way you can go through here and you can bend things around. And then also you want to be able to twist. So you can twist this one. Yeah, this one's, I mean, it's okay. It's all right. You know, you get a little bit of twist in there. You get a little bit of bend. And then once you've done that, you're good to go. And then again, we have perspective turned on. You can turn your floor on if you want to. And then you can hit BBR render. Because the bean body is attached to this other subtool, if I turn everything else back on, shift and turn the eyeball on, you're going to see the feet are down here. So what I can do is just hit clone, and that'll shoot the bean body into its own subtool. So what I really should have done when I save the bean body, go back to our start state here with our undos. I'm going to clone this one off, and then we can save this one as bean body here. Let's see if I can catch up. Any favorite project of mine? Usually the latest thing I've done, and it's my favorite for a couple of weeks, and then I look at it and then I don't like it very much anymore. But yeah, and we'll get to this one too. I think today, this kind of making of the arcade, you can kind of see it here. Oh, I guess it's just the YouTube video. Skip. Oh, you know what? It's down here. Oh, you know what? It's not. I forgot. Those are just the render turnarounds. And it's actually a fairly straightforward process. You know, prop modeling, find the shape, extrude, find the shape, extrude. Oh, I need to extrude in a face. select them and extrude. Just a lot of extruding. So it's not a terribly difficult thing to model, and none of this was difficult. It was basically just a little bit of Photoshop work, a little bit of modeling work, throw it into Painter. Probably the most iffy thing was the game res, because I didn't want to sit there and do a whole game res. So the game res is actually kind of nasty. The modeling itself is actually pretty clean, but the game res, I was just like combine, union, decimate. I really didn't want to sit there, because I also didn't want to go through and be like, okay, if I game res this, I can delete the back face mask, I can sew these up, I can blah blah blah, remesh everything nicely. I was not interested in that at all. So, oh, there's the Marmoset viewer too. So if you want to dive in and check it out, the lighting isn't quite as nice as, oops, scroll. Lighting isn't, I guess I don't want to go full screen, this is gonna be massive, but isn't quite as nice as the real Marmoset render, but you can kind of go through here and check out, you know, all the stuff. And again, when it comes to like modeling, this is literally just a sphere and a cylinder and a sphere and a cylinder and a sphere and a cylinder, and then boxes that are extruded. So pretty simple. And this animated screen was set up right here. You can go to Eddie's page and you can go to the Marmoset. You have to open up Marmoset 3 and then create your, at least I did, open up Marmoset 3, create your material in there, export that material, go into Marmoset 4, import your material. I couldn't get it to work with Marmoset 4, but that was easy enough to do. Any suggestion for saving faster in ZBrush, especially for models over 30 million polys? My saves aren't that slow. I had a 30, my Ninja Turtle was 30 million polys or so, I want to say. Let me see, streaming, turtle power, Michelangelo, bake, placement. I guess we can open up this one. Beep, boop, beep. I mean, I guess if you are, you can always go in here too. Let's turn off transparent. If you're going into under edit, you know, you probably don't want to store your undo history on a 30 million polygon model. That adds up real quick. So that would be under file, include undo history, save project. Go ahead and turn that off. And then also, I think under preferences, file, save, file. Somewhere under preferences, there might also be a history include or not. But like I said, okay, so this one's 70 million polygons for all this whole thing here. And a lot of that is actually in his mouth, his teeth and his tongue. So I could probably knock those back down. But anyway, 70 million polygons here. So save as, and we'll just say test, enter, and then wait for it to give it back to me. I mean, it takes a bit, but you know, when I'm working on a massive file, a couple minutes for a save isn't usually a deal breaker, at least that I've noticed. So there we go. So it's saved. Maybe 10 seconds. I meant sculpt and not dynamic. Well, that's just, I mean, a good one for, I mean, I would use dynamic anyways, but the basics of it are, you have a piece of cloth. The first thing you need to tell yourself is this draped over anything, or where is it draped from? You know, you've got a tension point, and then you have, if it's on top of an object, you need to take that into consideration. Obviously, cloth is going to drape over an object, and also the tension points are where it's going to be pinned, and then it's going to drape here. So this is where it's going to drape through here, and also working with subdivision history is really important. So you can always go down and get your major forms, and then go back up and get the more secondary forms. Cloth tends to be a little more rectilinear than you give it credit for, I suppose, but good reference, and just knowing the basics of like, okay, here's the tension point, there's the surface it's draped on, here's how cloth is going to interact, and also how is cloth going to, what's what I'm looking for, how is cloth going to drape over surface, and also the quality of the cloth, like is it leather or is it cotton? And the cool thing about dynamics is I can literally pin this cloth, have gravity turned on, floor collision turned on, so it'll drape on the floor. And then I can run the simulation. Let's go ahead and turn that gravity way down. And there you go. So instead of sitting here going like, oh, let me and do that for 15 minutes, I can do that for 15 seconds. Now, is it good to know how to drape cloth? Sure. If you have like a bent knee with jeans and you need specific types of wrinkles, by all means, use that to your advantage. I want to say I did a little bit of that. I mean, it doesn't have a bent knee or anything, but, you know, sculpting this guy. Let's see, skip. So this live stream, we kind of went over a little bit of that, but I did use dynamic brushes for that. And that's just a way to kind of go through here. If you do have, you know, specific types of wrinkles that you want to include, let's go ahead and hit Control D one more time, like this. And then you want to go through here with, say, like your pinch brush, go in here to elasticity, and then say simulation iterations up to 100. You can reinforce what you've already sculpted with dynamic cloth. So today is Mannequin Day. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to say delete all on those. Mannequin Day and miscellaneous question day. Is there a way to make ZBrush make material IDs with seam brushes? The stitches and seam need to have their own different material IDs. The seam brushes themselves, sure. It would be with, I mean, I guess you could do a just last. I would say if you want a really clean material ID, don't use seam brushes, use IMM brushes. What's going to happen is you're going to go in here with, let's say, oh boy, drag this back. Man, opening tools always gives me some weird settings in here. If we go in here to brush, and I want to say stitch, elemental PQRST, stitch here. It's like, okay, I want these to be on their own separate material ID, right? Well, it's got some fade focal shift put in there. If you drop the focal shift down, it's going to give you a seam along the side possibly. And you can have, you know, this be one material ID. So we'll say purple and we'll fill, and then, okay, well, this will be another material ID. So we have RGB turned on, and you can do that, but is it on there enough? You may have to play around with that alpha button on here. So now this is, you know, this will disregard the gradient and then just give you a pure material ID. But in this case, you know, you probably want that middle piece to be purple. So you may have to do something like, you know, turn A back on, do this, and then maybe replay last with just RGB turned on, and then that'll get you a kind of, but this is, and it's really kind of destructive, right? So what I would do instead of all that, what I would be, I have two separate subtools. So I'd go through here, and if I want to put a stitch on there, duplicate this off, delete lower, Control Shift. Let's go ahead and just slice where we want that curve to be. Actually, let's do this reconstruct back. We don't need that much geometry. Go through here where we want that stitch to be, and then just load up, you know, an IMM stitch brush, or just make one. I mean, I can just make one real quick. So we go in here to a star, and we say down here to initialize, Q cube. Let's turn on perspective, W, stretch this out. Let's go in here to our Z modeler brush, bevel, edge loop complete, Z modeler brush is BZM. You can go in here to bend arc, and we can go yoink. So here's our little stitch start here, and we can go ahead and thin this out a little bit. And then now we can go, let's hold down shift and make this a 45-degree angle. We can hit D to preview what this will look like, and then we can say W, you know what, this will go drag out a copy. We'll just duplicate this and then hold down shift and 90 degrees, maybe pull this one up a little bit here. So now we have stitches. We'll go ahead and merge these down, hit Control W, make them all one poly group. And then now when we drag this out, you can hold down Control and you can get a preview of what that's going to look like. Good enough. So just go ahead and make your stitches like so. And we can go in here, we can say B create insert mesh. Let's do this. Q. So B, create insert mesh, new. And if we want to do variations of this, like, you know what, I just want this one. Control Shift drag, Control Shift A, B, create insert mesh brush, append, skip note, and you know what, we'll do this too. We'll go Control Shift A, and we'll say geometry modify topology, delete hidden, hold down Shift. We'll just make this one straight across, and we'll say B, create insert mesh, append. So we've got 3 different types of stitches. For all of these, we can go in here to stroke, curve brush, turn on curve mode. So now you can drag these out. You can go into your stroke settings curve step and say maybe like 1.5. So that way, when you drag them out, they'll be a little more spaced out. Let's make this like 2.25. There you go. So something like this. So now if we go back to our sphere here, we can say, I mean, you can just drag it right onto your mesh if you'd like. Smaller. There we go. It'll stick. Or we can go in here to stroke. Let's open up all these other curve functions, curve modifiers under curve functions, stroke our polygroup border, and then go ahead. Let's turn off X symmetry so we can just have one go all the way around. If we don't like that one, you know, it's like, I wanted to do a little bit of a cross stitch, you know, we can put that one, or you know what, I want to do the full X. Go ahead and put that one on there. And now we can say, you know what, I'm going to do a visibility hide point, Control Shift drag, and then delete hidden. So now I have 2 separate subtools here. And on this one, I can hit D for dynamic. I can go in here to inflate, deformation inflate, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And now if I want to fill this one in with red, that's color fill, by the way, and then fill this one in with yellow, no problemo. So now, turn polyframe off. We have very clean stitches on here. Now, even better, if this isn't going to be 3D printed or it's just going to be a game model, I would do your stitches in the texture. You get more control, because if you go in here and you go, it's too high, or oh shoot, you know, it's too thick, or I don't like that stitch pattern anymore. In a texture, you can modify that on the fly, whereas in here you have to go back and recreate it all. Interview section on making anime hair. If you go into my YouTube channel and you say hair, here's Dragon Ball Z, ZBrush hair creation, some more hair masses. I will say this was made before there was the inclusion of, let's do Shift D, the extruder brushes, so BE extrude profile. You can hit M, where you can just go up here and select. Let's go back down here, and you can select any of these. So this is a really easy way to go through here and just kind of do hair. Can't lose. Also a little bit on this girl here. 2021.6. You know, you just basically, you mass out, you do the hair masses with like clay brush, clay buildup, and then you go through here and you can use the extruder brush and just kind of position them really quickly. And eventually, oh, there's not a shot of her. Eventually it'll look something like that. Path custom palette in there. Can we get that? You can. I would say just probably the easiest thing is you can screenshot that, and then I can select a ZSphere, and then you can screenshot that, and you can just create it. All of that's going to be found underneath the intro to ZBrush here, and if you do a search for custom, I think. Custom brushes, no. Custom interface and menus, video number 42. I want to say it's on Gumroad under like intro to ZBrush files, but there's really nothing special about this. In fact, a lot of this I don't, I guess I use enough of it, but your workflow is probably different than mine, so. let's see. Okay, I missed a bunch. If I missed something, I apologize. Good morning, Man Creative. Yeah, we can show the animated screen plug again. It's pretty. It's 2 steps. Cool. Thanks. Low res retop on hard surface being more tedious and organic, not as precise. Rebuild objects in a quad drawer, ZSphere retop. Yeah, I would agree with that. Already eating all the time. I am eating. Here's a little product placement. Ricola Ox Herbase. Original herb. Because my voice will be destroyed by the time this is over. Radial array in ZBrush, I have trouble understanding it. I use Blender and it's pretty easy with a few add-ons to make. And Blender is easier with a few add-ons. I agree. Make object and spin it around to your liking. I wish to learn radial array as a modifier in ZBrush. Well, we have an object here, and then we go in here to array mesh, radial array. Yeah, okay, that would be an array mesh. So here we have array mesh, and then I like to do W and then Y to go into transpose mode, so I can turn on transpose. Usually I lock position and lock size. So as I go, you have repeat and stage here. Here's repeat and stage. This is going to be a really crappy tutorial, like Google array mesh. Paul Gabriel probably has a better video than I do. In fact, for sure he does. I'm not a huge fan of dealing with this. But you can turn on rotate, and you can go through here and you can do like X and Z amounts, or if you want to rotate like around a center point, you can go in here and you can hit reset, I think, and then that'll reset your pivot to the middle, and then you can do rotate in the Y amount, like say 360 degrees, and then we can do our repeats here. So now it's just rotating right around the middle. Of course, you can move your pivot, or you can just grab this yellow thing here and you can move your pivot wherever you'd like. And then you can play around with your arrays like so. And of course, if you go into polyframe, you can go through here. You can, move this stuff around or change it out completely if you want to. You can also go into the comma key arrays and just grab one of these. So here's a radial array mesh that's already turned into 4 tires. There we go. And this is just going in here to array, adding transform stage. So here's stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and that's just mirroring to get these other tires over here. And then again, we can go down here to initialize Q cube. There we go. So now we have this object that's an array, so we can modify this object here. And we probably want to, we can lock position, lock size, so as we're moving this around, everything stays locked. It doesn't add gaps in between. So easy way to go through and make a tire or whatever you plan on making with a radial array. But again, I'm not an array expert by any means. So yeah, there's probably better videos out there. Export OBJ options in ZBrush. Have to remove polygroup, not before. Bring something to life. One object will be split into many parts. It's under here under preferences. They moved it in 2021.7 to preferences, export, I believe. Import, export. So on everything, you can turn off group, export subgroups. So turn that off, and that'll do it for all of your subtools, as opposed to having to do that for every single one. 40K already used. High-res models are typically be any size. Yes. Technically versus shortcut letters. Yeah, my shortcuts, that's the other thing too, is having the keyboard shortcuts isn't going to help you, because I have all of my hotkeys assigned to custom hotkeys. So you'll see me say like Alt-C, Alt-W, Alt-A, and it's going to mean nothing to you because those are all brush hotkeys. And Alt-A is bringing up my custom menu that don't, I'm using functionality in here that again isn't going to be overly helpful. Plus I can't find a keyboard player that I can move and reposition. There's some that'll be like, oh, simply reposition it, and I do it, and then it jumps back over to the corner of my screen. I'm only using about 40% of my screen in the middle, and then I have a bunch of screen around it, and it always wants to jump to the lower left or the lower right corner. So until I find one that doesn't do that, guess I won't. Curve with planes with UVs for doing complicated hair, for example. I wouldn't do it in here. Maya XGen, Geotomaya hair plugin. I mean, you can use fiber mesh that has 0 to 1 UVs, but if I'm just going to be putting in UV or planes like brush, curve, flat snap, you know, and I'm just putting in hair cards, that'll work. So I'm just putting in a bunch of hair cards like so, and then I need to UV these. I would probably use a program to go root to tip for me. I wouldn't use ZBrush for that. Oh, cool. Glad the videos are working for you. Every polygroup shows up as an object you can be used to uncheck the option undo export. It's gone now. I have to remove polygroups every time I export. Yeah, that's under that preferences. XYZ displacement is used. Kind of, yeah. You can bake out displacement in ZBrush if that's what you're talking about in here. So you can have displacement. You need UV maps, and then you can create your displacement maps in here. There is something weird with, like, what setting is it? Maybe displacement intensity, depend on if it's like, if your displacement is based on gray or if it's based on black values, it can get weird. But can you Dynamesh a single plane? You can, sure. So we can say make polymesh 3D and then just turn on Dynamesh. However, it's going to give you a pretty bizarre result, and that's the same thing as if you have a very thin plane. So QMesh polygroup all. Hold on. And so it's a very thin plane, and then we Dynamesh this very thin plane here, and then you want to go through here and do like a clay buildup, for example. Let's go back to, yeah. So clay buildup, and then you Dynamesh, and it looks like trash. One thing, you can be on a very thin surface, go in here to back face masking so that you don't mess around with the back. It automatically masks it for you. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to think of a reason why, or a good use case for Dynameshing a single-sided mesh. I guess if you wanted to pull it around. If I'm going to do something like a cape, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much. I can just go in here and make polymesh 3D. You can even turn on Sculptors Pro, so BSH for BSH. Oh yeah, it is BSH. Turn on Sculptors Pro. So now we have the snake hook brush. We can go through here and we can do our dynamic, you know, shapes and whatever you wanna do. And same thing for hair. You know, so if this is going to be hair, I can do that. I can turn that off. I can Dynamesh this. You know what? Lower resolution here. That's under Geometry Dynamesh, and go in here with your clay buildup brush, and this is the direction you want your hair to go, and then you can go through and, you know, use your curves, but at least you have a starting point for how you want your hair or the flow of your stuff to be. Or if this is going to be a cape, here's the cape where I want it to go. I don't need to work on a single-sided mesh for that. I can work on a thick mesh if I want to, and then just BT over topology brush, and then use this as a guide for how my cape is going to flow. So I don't need to worry about, you know, oh, I got to work on a single-sided mesh because it's a cape. You can turn anything into a single-sided mesh later if you want to. Tap, turn your brush size down to 1, tap on your object, geometry modified or subtool split, and now you have a cape. And if you want better geometry, this is ZBrush mesh, same, depth size down to 0. And let's see if this is going to pick up. And it's kind of doing some nasty stuff in there. So in this case, Z modeler brush, BZM, insert single edge loop, go through here, maybe add some divisions. Actually, in this case, we can just do, go into geometry. I'm going to go ahead, we already have this crease, so it's going to maintain our border a little bit better. If you don't, just go into crease and then hit Control. Let's raise that crease tolerance up so it doesn't grab our middle pieces here, and then Control D to subdivide. And then you can pull these corners back out. But now this can be your cape, and now that it's a decent mesh. I wouldn't say great mesh, but it's a decent mesh. You can go into your cloth brushes as well. Come on, man. Skin Shader 4, Polyframe, Control D. Actually, I'd probably just use like a move brush with the elasticity turned on. It's usually good enough. Simulation, iterations, and then as you're moving, it'll maintain, or it should move simulation iterations. It should maintain those values. You can also, the pinch brush we were using earlier, you can go through here and kind of wrinkle it up a little bit. You can simulate it if you'd like. Let's hit Control D one more time. And now we have like a little cape. But again, I didn't have to Dynamesh it to play around with it because single-sided meshes in ZBrush are kind of a nightmare. Yeah, I would say if it's not for 3D printing, it's just for a game, then seams in Painter is probably a better idea. At least in my opinion. Yeah, they actually have seam brushes that you can change. Or at least stitch brushes, I should say. Can I use my own mesh in Nanomesh? Of course. Any of the basic stuff. You just go to my channel, Nanomesh. But that's one of the huge. So if we go in here, for example, go BI brush insert industrial parts. Let's say we're going to go in here to give you the 5-minute tour of it. Brush, create, insert, create Nanomesh brush, and then now if we have any object in here, let's say make polymesh 3D. Let's do a quick group by normals. That's under your polygroup menu somewhere down here, and then as we hover over this, hit B, here's our new Nanomesh brush that we have these on there. So these are all my nanomeshes I have available to me. So I can say insert, Nanomesh, polygroup all, pull that out, and there I've got those. If I want to mix and match, I can grab another one on here. I can hold down Shift as I pull out a Nanomesh. And then on this Nanomesh, we go in here to Nanomesh, we can say, you know what, I want this to be a pattern. Grid pattern. So H tile, we'll say 2, and V tile, we'll say 2, and we'll say, so that's going to put them in the corner. I guess grid is okay. Say border, yeah, same thing. So then on this, and so here's index 0, which is our original screw. So we can go through here, we can change the size of this one, and then index 1, we can change the size of this one and the rotations and any of that stuff. But yeah, you can use your own message. New feature of mirroring. Yes, so for all the new features, ZBrush 2021.7, what's new? You can go up here and it'll start you there, and then mirror, flip, masking, and polypaint on posed models. I would just literally do this exact same thing. There's no point in me doing it for my live stream. It's all there. Close. We're going to studio. Yes, certain affinity. Yeah, and I also like John does, I use FBXs to export. How do you separate a subtool with different meshes with split? So for example, if I go down here to array mesh, or I'm sorry, Nanomesh, and we do inventory, one to mesh, and then these are all part of the same object. I can Control Shift click and Control Shift click, Control Shift A, or Control Shift click these. They're all different. That's under subtool split. You can group split the similar parts. In this case, what I might do, I usually do it manually just to play it safe. Control Shift A, and then do split hidden. That's underneath your split menu. And then that'll split it out into its own subtool. Same thing for these. If they have different polygroups on the back, Control Shift A, and then split hidden. And now I've got Alt Tap 1, 2, 3 subtools. hair tool, nifty tool for making hair. FBX down, keep my brush poly groups. Yes. Yes. Smooth Dynamesh in many situations. Sure. So on this one here, we have a mesh, and it's a Dynamesh, right? And we have polygroups on here. If we didn't, we can hit Control W, make it all one polygroup. And then if you wanted to smooth, you hold down Shift, and you can smooth obviously, but you may be talking more about like, can I smooth the whole thing, which would be under deformation. You can use smooth. I tend to use polish by features. Closed circle is going to maintain your volumes. Open circle is going to just really smooth it, like so. And if you wanted to kind of, I don't know, let's go back out here. We'll use our move brush, and we'll say Control Slice Curve. So if I put a slice in here, that's actually a feature. So as I'm going through here, let's turn off line, and I say polish by features, it's going to take that feature into account. So it'll actually kind of crease that here. So if I go through here and I pull this out, and then I, again, polish by features, you can just tap it just to keep applying it. That'll go ahead and smooth my mesh. It's still Dynamesh. You can Control drag and re-Dynamesh as needed. But then as soon as you go in here to polish by features, it'll smooth it all back up again. See, there goes my voice. Transpose Smart Math work with symmetry. Yeah, you don't really even have to use Transpose Smart Masks necessarily. So you can go in here to just a transpose line. So W, Y, and then there's your transpose line, and then go in here to alpha and just drag it, here's your star alpha, and then hold down Control. Oh, I thought you could. Let's see, Control, drag, Control, oh, maybe not. Let me see, BT, brush transpose, been a while. I don't do this a whole bunch. Oh, you know what? I need to have it in the, that's right. Okay, so BTR for a regular transpose brush. In the transpose brush, just grab your alpha, and then when you drag out Control, you can just use spacebar to kind of move this around and position it so it's a little bit better than drag rect. And it does do it across symmetry, so we have X turned on. But it's also going to go all the way through your mesh, I think. Let's see. Brush transpose, Control drag, our star. Yeah, it's going all the way through the mesh. I mean, I guess the good news is, if it is a symmetrical object, and you're just doing it on one side, is it doing it? I don't have symmetry turned on, but it is. Okay, yeah, so it's going across the mesh. So Control Alt, get rid of that one, and then underneath masking. So do all the masking you want on one side, and then underneath your masking menu in 2021.7, there is a mask mirror posable symmetry, or flip by posable symmetry. Mirror posable symmetry, X symmetry turned on. Yeah, I should go to the other side here. It's symmetrical. Mass change points. Mirror by posable symmetry. Symmetry result 0. Okay. Let's see. Mirror and weld. Delete higher. Mirror and weld across the x-axis. So it is symmetrical. And if I go through here and I'm like, okay, I have symmetry turned off, and I don't want to do it on the other side for some reason, I should be able to go into, I wonder if the cylinder's throwing it off actually. Sorry, masking, mirror, that's weird. Let me think. Dynamesh, X symmetry, we have an object here. Oh yeah, we have cloth turned on for our move brush here. So we have an object here. You know what? Maybe I want to zero mesh half. Actually, I probably should have put in like 5 or something. Half, 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 and then Control D, Control D. So now we have subdivision history. We can turn X symmetry off. And then I wonder if I have to actually pose it. Okay, that worked. It just didn't really want to work on that cylinder. So again, with transpose here, it's like, okay, just to verify. Okay, it does work with symmetry, but it also goes through your mesh too, like a mask rectangle. So in this case, you can turn X symmetry off if it's doing some weird stuff, and then we can switch back to mask pin without an alpha. And then we can just do a mirror biposable symmetry and get the mask on the other side. Sorry, that's a weird one. I have any idea how to make a scale brush like this? Seems like an alpha with a gradient and specific stroke orientation can replicate it without stepping artifacts. So what's happening there is what it looks like is the Damien Standard 02. You can download that from the internet. So it looks like it's just more like kind of going around and just kind of making scale. That's what I did for the scales on my Ninja Turtle, kind of. This might be interesting to some. You can go through here and you can kind of make a scale pattern like so. And then you can go through here with, what is it? BXT, brush extractor brush. Make your brush size big enough to grab it all. Hit G on your keyboard and then just pull across here. And that'll go ahead and let's make this a little bit smaller. Hit G on your keyboard, pull across your mesh. Oh, you know what? Forgot. We only want to capture this. I'm going to go back to where we just started here. Control tap that point in history and then hit G. There we go. So now we can actually use this brush to kind of make these scales, you know, all over our mesh that we just borrowed. Of course, you can make your own scale brush. In fact, there's a bunch of scale brushes. Comma brush scales. You can go through here and you can play around with some of these. So you can steal what's already in there and get the result that you're looking for. And some of these have, I don't know, better or worse settings. Scales E. Another one too would be brush, comma key, no, not comma key, B, chisel creature, let's say. So these are VDM brushes. You can Google that, but we can grab scales on here and just kind of drag those out. Or we can go in here and change the stroke to a dot stroke and just pull those along the surface. You can go into stroke and then change the, I guess it's under lazy mouse, isn't it? Hidden modifiers, lazy mouse, lazy step. Let's say maybe 1. And also let's change that lazy radius down. It's the same area, it just doesn't need to be at 100. Stroke, lazy radius down to like 4. There you go. And then you can just keep dragging these out as scales. Of course, you probably need a little bit more resolution than what I've got on this object, so you get a little bit of a nicer result. Exporting your polypane and texture maps like base color and normals, etc. Not from ZBrush. Only thing I would, yeah, I do. So to answer your question, yes. Go back to ArtStation here. Scroll down. I've done it a bunch of times. Here's the sci-fi weapon. This one is kind of a little bit more complex. For a really easy one, the speed modeling and texturing might be better. So this one and this one. But yeah, I only generally export. I mean, if I polypaint in here, I'll export that as a texture, or you can go down here to you can go Z plugin, multi-map exporter, and then you can bake out your texture from polypaint as well as your normal or displacement, whatever you want. You can also just go in here to texture map and say create new from polypaint. A detailed vector logo into ZBrush and have it decent 3D extrudes with good topology. Good topology, probably not, but vector, sure. It would be under Z plugin, text, and vector shapes, and then you can just load it in here. I think it has to be let me see if I can just, when in doubt, vector mesh. So here's me bringing in, where is that? Simpleicons.org, loading those in, and that's, you know, I mean, won't be great geometry, but you can ZRemesh it to get you decent geometry. Brush years ahead. I think I got rid of those brushes that were over here, so no more ears. I guess I can put those back. I just didn't end up using them very much anymore. That was for more of a concept-y project I was doing. Making a mandala radial symmetry. ZBrush. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but maybe they probably have. Contains bilateral symmetry that is radial arrayed on a central axis, I guess. That would be array mesh, but like I said in the earlier, I'm certainly not an array mesh expert. I don't do it. You can also use radial symmetry, but that's more for a sculpty type thing. Not carving the geometry, adding to it. Not only the scale board of the center doesn't get affected. That might, it looks like maybe a variation, or maybe turning on, who does a lot of this? I'm trying to remember the name of the person. He's an Italian guy. Oh, I don't remember his name, but he does a lot of scale stuff. Let me look at my notes here. Creature. Scales, sculpting scales. There we go. ZBrush masters, all sorts of scales and more scales and reptile scales. So this one probably in here might give you better information. So check this out. Not too much sparks. Reporting bugs. Seems to have noticed fixes contrast ZBrush sculpture will turn on a crash in ZBrush. Report that to ZBrush. I'm Michael Pavlovich. I don't work for ZBrush. But yeah, you can submit a ticket on their website. Oh yeah, it might be /2. So if we, oh boy, I got a mess in here, don't I? So underneath our slash brushes, elemental PQRS /2. Oof. Maybe drop that intensity way down. Let's actually turn off our. Yeah, it does kind of, I mean, I guess if you use a feather touch, you know, it's not really going to affect the other ones here. And then, like I was saying, the Debian standard too, you actually have to have a pretty big brush to kind of make it indent more. I suck. Maybe a smaller brush with a higher Z intensity. I don't know. Boy, this is fun, isn't it? Scales, everybody. On my Ninja Turtle, I did a whole bunch of scale work that kind of worked out, kind of didn't. cool, cool. Thank you just for now. Let's see here. It's very close. Yeah, good. I mean, yeah, scales are one of those things. There's a bunch of different ways to kind of achieve it. Let's go ahead. So we have a bean body saved. I'm just going to dump ZBrush here. There's a bunch of stuff in there. Now that it's slowed down, also let me get a big drink here. There we go. So, alrighty. So we have a load tool. Back to it. Streaming here. I did want to try on this one in particular. So we have a body in here. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Skin Shader 4. Turn off perspective. So again, we can go through here, we can hold down Control, and we can mask as we go, and then we can, center our pivot, and then move and twist as needed. Now, if you're going to turn this into a body, you can, before doing all that, you maybe want to indicate some shoulders on here, so we can turn on X symmetry temporarily. We could say, okay, this is our shoulders, and maybe this is our hips, and then you could even maybe go in here and say flatten the head, or let's try this. Let's do Control D, geometry, delete lower, and let's put a little neck catcher in here. Let's go to edge loop, mask border, and then we can say ZBrush same, keep group, smooth groups down to 0. There we go. So now we've got a little bit more representative bean body here. And then now we can go through here and we can say W, X symmetry turned off, Control drag down the object here to get the waist. And then now we can kind of go through here and, oops, we probably want to position this in the middle of our body, right? And also, let's try this. Let's do Brush Transpose Cloth, BTC. And then if we have Transpose Cloth on there, you'll get wrinkles as well. We can also just go in here, Control Mask Lasso, Control Drag, Control Tap to really blur that out. So then as we're bending, it'll maybe maintain our volumes, kind of, or as we're twisting maybe. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that works fine. Look at that, that's cute. So here's our twisted body in here. And then now that can be the start of your body. Or again, if you just want to go in here to perspective and hit VPR, let's go ahead and load up your favorite drawing program, whichever that happens to be for you. And then you can just use that as a basis for your body. So bean body, well, that's number one. We can do that first. So in my instance, in my case, I'd probably just, Windows Shift S to do a quick little snip, and then hop back over to Photoshop, Control N, Enter, Control V, and then drop this opacity down. And I suppose if you wanted to add a midline in your model, you could do that too. You can kind of see it through here, but it may be easier if we do this. Let's see, let's do Control Shift, select lasso. I'm going to do right along here, Control Shift drag, Control W, and then same thing on this side, Control W. So now you've got an indication of where your midline is. So again, switch back to Skin Shader 4 here. And you know what, we can turn off the line. We don't need to see the lines. We've already got our colors on there. And then again, render, Windows Shift S, and then go on over to Photoshop. Drop the opacity down. There you go. So now you have that midline there, your neck hole. Here's your shoulders and your hips. Here's the twist in the body that we have, so you can follow that midline around. Here's the butt in the back. So that's your indication of where all that stuff's going to go. Now, there's not a tremendous amount of information on here, so we can go through and do something else. Let's try, instead of loading, I like the settings I have, and I don't want to load up the settings that are in the project. So again, load tools from project, and we're going to go into our ZBrush C program files, pixel, ZBrush 2021, Z projects. Why can I not see it? Element, Z projects. Then we can just grab, we'll start with the male. So we have a geometry here. We have polyframe on, fill, line turned off. So let's go ahead, I'm gonna go down to subdivision level 1, delete higher, because again, we're just looking at mannequin information. One kind of easy way to split this guy up is hold down Control Shift, go in here to slice curve, and turn off perspective. And we can say, okay, head, neck, arm, elbow, wrist. And it's only gonna do it on one side, but we can mirror and weld. And then let's hold down Control Shift and isolate just this one. And we're gonna say waist, put one in here. So this is where you can be really bendy as a human in between your rib cage and your pelvis. The pelvis isn't gonna be that bendy. And then we'll do knees, ankle, ball of your foot. I suppose that'll work. And then we need one more, which is gonna be a little bit trickier, that I may not be able to use a slice for, because if I go through here and slice this, it's gonna kind of go awkwardly over the body. So in this instance, what I'm gonna do is we'll say geometry or deformation, mirror across the X, geometry modify topology, mirror and weld, isolate just this portion, and then we'll go in here with our mask lasso. We'll say, okay, this is where I want my mask to be here and here. And then let's try edge loop. Oh, let's go ahead and say split hidden, edge loop mask border. Good enough. If we want to clean up this border, you can mask just the border and do that. However, I like to go in here to the comma key, brushes, L-O-M-N-O P-Q-R-S, smooth groups. So that'll switch out our smooth brush. So now we can literally just smooth that group border in here. So if you have some uh-ohs, you can do that. There we go. So now we have all of our pieces in here. And actually, while we were slicing, again, you can hold down Control Shift, hold down Spacebar, go into brush radius. So as you slice, you'll actually leave a little bit of a gap in between. So if I go through here, you can see there's a little spacer in there. Yeah, maybe I should have done that. But we can introduce, well, we'll do it for the female, we'll do it the other way. So if I merge these down, it's under your merge menu, obviously, subtool merge down. We have all these on here, and you're good to go. Now, if you wanted to simplify, or it's like I don't need like a mouth bag and anything like that, you can go through here and Dynamesh. However, if you want to keep the toes and the hands, you're going to want to split them off first. Oops, Control Shift, split hidden. So then we can all tap here. So now we have the entire body. I also am going to assume that some of these areas are going to be a little bit more problematic than others. So you could do a group split and split these into their own groups. Oh, thank you. So, and that would just be to kind of simplify this mesh. We have good information here, but you're going to see the edges get a little bit chewed up. Not a huge deal for a mannequin. But, you know, it's just, again, this might be just stuff for you to consider. So let's do this. Control Shift, I'm going to grab the head by itself, split hidden, and we'll just Dynamesh this with a resolution maybe at 448. And then we can go through here and we can simplify this down to just its base information, you know, so maybe a wedge for the nose. Go in here with H polish, maybe trim dynamic, and you can, you know, simplify as needed. So now that we have this information, when we Dynamesh, we did get an open hole or a polygroup for the bottom. Control Shift drag, geometry modify topology, delete hidden. Zero mesh half, adaptive size down to 0. It is going to build in this nasty geo. So in this instance, I may go down here to masking, mask our open border, Control tap to invert, and then polish by features, deformation, polish by features, open circle, zero mesh half. And that'll give us cleaner, simplified geometry for our head. And then Z modeler brush, BZM, close, convex hole, Control Shift tap that one, Control W. And now we've got our own piece for this one. Now this one here, for instance, you don't have to do that for every single one. You can just go through here. I'm just going to grab the arms, split hidden, zero mesh, half, adaptive size down to 0, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0 because they're already smooth. And then we'll just, again, simplify these. And I can put bevels in between these. And all I'm basically doing is just grabbing pieces that I think are going to be problematic and just splitting them off. I don't want to give zero mesh too much to think about while I'm doing that. So this is probably fine. And then this here. In fact, probably just these ones. Split hidden, zero mesh, depth size down to 0, half, keep groups, there we go. U and U. This one is going to be a kind of a tricky one possibly. That shape is just got all sorts of thicks and thins. So we're going to split this and then say half, depth size down to 0, keep groups we don't need to worry about because it's just one group. Good enough. And then finally, I think these will probably be fine. So half, depth size 0, keep groups. Cool. Oh, and these are separate meshes, I forgot. So we can go ahead and split those off. Yeah, good enough. So now we have our simplified mannequin that we can go through and pose. I want these to be all separate pieces, so I can manually go through here, or I can say group split, and that'll just split those off into their own subtools. And in fact, before I do that, I might want to go through some of these and then, put in a bevel through here just to kind of separate those out visually. Control Shift tap the pink, Control Shift drag to invert that, Control Shift drag again, delete hidden. So that way there's like a little space between these. And this isn't any mannequin in particular. It's more of just, let's all tap these toes here. Oops, let's do zero mesh. Let's do zero mesh same on this one, just because I don't want to destroy the toes too much. And then we'll put that on there. So where do we leave off? Here. This is fine. I'm just going through and capping with our Z modeler brush. Just hover over an edge with closed convex hole, like so. And on this one, I know there's, I'm trying to remember who it was, if it was like Drawing Comics the Marvel way or not. But instead of that, you can go in here and extrude polygroup all, and you can just pull in a thickness on this. Or you know what I'm doing? I'm going to pull out just a little bit, and then hold down, start pulling in and hold down Shift. Just kind of push along that surface normal. So you can kind of have the little solid piece of underwear in there, or you can cap it. It's up to you. Here, again, we'll just pop in a bevel here, and let's go ahead and just get rid of that. Delete hidden. Good to go. So I'm trying to think of like if there's a faster way. You could just close holes on all of these, but again, I'm just going to do just the convex hole with the polarized caps is all I'm really looking for. Oops. Let's fix this. Z modeler brush, bridge, edges, U to U, geometry modify topology, mirror and weld, delete edge with our Z modeler brush. There we go. Close, convex hole. If you want to know the basics of Z modeler, if you don't know anything about what I'm doing, as usual, go to that, what I was linking earlier, which is my intro to ZBrush things, or any of this is all just basic functionality. Again, I don't do intro to ZBrush stuff on my live streams, as little as I can, just because it bores the hell out of me. But it also kind of pisses people off too. So here, closing these, and then we've got our hand. So we basically just made a little mannequin. Do I need to remesh this? No. Alternatively to this, you probably could have just gone through and deleted geometry. But in our case, I think we did okay. Oops, close. There we go. What I'm going to do for these, I'm going to do a quick, underneath your polygroups menu under geometry polygroups, I'm going to crank that max angle up a bit to maybe 60. Group by normals, geometry modify topology, mirror and weld. And then now I can go through here with my Z modeler brush, Q mesh or extrude, polygroup all, hold down Shift, and just pull along those surface normals to kind of spacer a little bit. Same thing for this one. This one I might be able to just keep my group by normals, mirror and weld, Shift. Again, start Q meshing or extruding and then hold down shift. It'll just pull along those surface normals. There we go. And this one, you can actually just go through your Control Shift, tap these, Control W, and then when if you're going to use extrude, don't do polygroup. I'll do polygroup island because these are all the same polygroup, but those are just islands of polygroups. You can kind of just hold down Shift and push those on out. So same thing for this one. So polygroup island. And again, for the female, we'll do a couple different techniques. It'll be maybe a little bit easier than this one. There we go. So we've got a mannequin of sorts. We can go through and possibly pose out with ZSpheres. Maybe we'll have to try that. But you can merge down, or you can just go to merge visible, and that'll shoot out a copy of this. And we'll go ahead and save this as. And I'm going to drop this into my streaming. I'll call this male mannequin. So again, load tools from project. We'll do a different, slightly different technique this time. Nope, ZBrush. So load tools from project, ZBrush 2021, Z projects, and we'll load up the female. And again, we don't need a ton of geometry, so go down to subdivision level 1, delete higher. And we have our polyframe turned on, and we can see it. And so in here, what you can also do is you can go through here and just, okay, where I want to make the slice, I guess this is a good one. We can literally just go in here and bevel that edge loop. So we can say delete hidden, and then we can just cap these. So through here, or you can hold down Control Shift, go into your select lasso, select that, and then delete hidden. So if there's an edge ring that goes right around the area you want, easy enough. Now some of these may or may not have a complete edge loop around it. Seems like we're in good shape, and this is where it'll get weird. So like if I try to, you know, pull these shapes out, it kind of does this. So I really want to cut across here, so that I won't be able to do. But that's another way you can go about it. Same thing for here. You know, if I want to just do a straight line across here, I can't really. So one thing we can do, yeah, so let's do this. We'll go back into slice curve, but again, Control Shift, slice curve, spacebar, brush radius. The brush radius is that inner circle is going to be the radius of the brush slice. So if we go through here and use that brush radius, that'll go ahead and give us a spacer. So we can go ahead and select that, Control Shift drag, delete hidden. Oops. Careful. Let's go ahead and say polygroups, auto groups, geometry modify topology, mirror and weld. And I'm going to pop this head off into its own subtool, say split hidden. And then now slice, get rid of the pink there. And the cool thing about, like, if you like this geometry and you don't want to ZBrush it, go in through here and try not to slice, because if you slice, you're probably going to want to ZBrush to clean up those edges, or not. Again, it's not a huge deal if you're just selecting things, but we'll save as much as we can. So right through the ankle here, delete hidden, right through the ball of the foot here, delete hidden. And again, auto groups, mirror and weld, isolate this. We'll go ahead and say split. That's under your subtool split menu. And then to get the slice around here that we want, I think we're going to have to mask it again. So before we do that, we'll just get rid of this torso. So again, right along here is where we want to slice, right the rib cage, and then maybe another one in that lumbar region. Good enough. So now these I am going to ZBrush. Not a huge deal. We'll go ahead and say split hidden, don't delete hidden. And then we'll just say ZBrush or half depth size down to 0. We don't need to do groups because, you know, they're not touching. And then again, we can say, just kind of fix this a little bit if it has a little bit of a issue here. Good enough. Alt tap here. Moving right along. Delete hidden. The knees, looks like we can just go right through the middle of the knee here, delete hidden, auto groups, mirror and weld, isolate this, split hidden, and then I guess we'll mask this. Let me think. If I want to, let's do this. I'm gonna get a little bit more geometry. So we're gonna say Dynamesh at a resolution of like 300-ish or so, and then mask lasso. And then let's go in here to mask pin. And again, we're just looking for that mask around here. I'm gonna get rid of, I'm gonna isolate just this blue part here. And we're gonna do another geometry, edge loop mask border. Really? Let's do Control Shift drag, Control tap to unmask. No, it's gonna get rid of it all, isn't it? All right, I can slice that, I'm not gonna overthink it. So edge loop mask border. And then we've got our clean cut line here. We do have some extraneous geometry we don't necessarily want. I could have just subdivided. Instead of dynameshing, just subdivide. That'll give you, and I gotta clean that up now too. So we'll say delete hidden. I'm gonna isolate this one. We're gonna do a quick auto groups, and then I'm gonna grab both of these polygroups here, Control W. Always like to do a quick mirror and weld. And then I need to clean up those border edges. This is something I could have avoided if I would have just subdivided the original. So mask border, invert, polish by features, open circle. I'm gonna go ahead and split this off. Okay, good. And then, is that still bad geometry? Let's see. ZBrush half. Oh, that's not too bad. Half, half. That's too low. And then here, same deal. Half, half. You know what? I'm gonna slice. I don't need that kind of tucked geo. Oops. Turn off brush radius by holding spacebar. Grab this, delete hidden, ZBrush half. There we go. So now I've got this mannequin here, and I can leave the head as is. You know, it's got landmarks on there for me. If you don't mind the sliced bits here, if you do, we can say, you know, for example, split hidden, same depth size down to 0, or half. That bugs me. Let's do split this edge and then delete edge. Oops, delete edge, edge. And then for the head, I'm not going to worry about cleaning that up. So we're going to ahead and say close convex hole. Control Shift, Control W. Good enough. So now we can go through here, and you know what? We can do this. Let's do, again, a merge visible. And if you don't really care about the geometry that's in between these meshes, you can just run a geometry modified topology close holes operation, geometry modified topology mirror and weld, and then Control Shift A. I kind of want to Control Shift A. I'm going to split this one out temporarily, isolate this one, delete hidden, close convex hole, Control W, oops, we need X symmetry turned on, and then Q mesh, polygroup all, hold down Shift. I just want to put a little gap in between there, and then merge it back down. Alrighty, let's go ahead and do an auto groups, geometry modified topology mirror and weld, and we'll call this our female mannequin. Like so. And then we can get more abstract from here, or more specific from here if we wanted to add in. I'm trying to remember if there was sorry, these are just terrible pictures taken from my phone. If we wanted to add in, you know, here's just the basic shapes that we can create off the skeleton. You need to put balls for the joints on there. And this would be like another one. You know, so here's just kind of the base layout, and then here's the block in. So these basic shapes, and then circles for the joints, and then basic shapes for the body. However, you can also start sculpting specific geometry for just getting that kind of those reads, or just block people as well. Those might be kind of fun. But for a quick and easy mannequin setup, that'll also be all right. Hold on just a second. Okay. Okay, let me get caught up. Can merge 2 vertex points using ZModeler. Yes. So let's do a quick save. Let's go to our trusty cylinder. Let's delete this. You can say stitch 2 points, U to U, or U to U. Although in this case, you can also probably just do a collapse edge. Or, actually, now that I think about it, in here, you do have move by brush radius, and you're going to see there is a attraction valence. So you can go through here, and it'll just stick automatically. So you can just move them close to each other, and they'll stitch. Another thing is that if this was more what you're looking for, let's say we had a small bevel in here, delete hidden, and you're like, I just want to merge these things. Geometry modify topology weld point, just crank that weld distance up, and it'll weld those within a tolerance. Found a way of doing line mask around mask shapes by using create alpha from mask to texture, then creating outlines from it, then re-importing in mask by alpha. Somebody should write a script for that. That sounds intense, but useful. What exactly is a texture map export? Does it combine normal, base color, etc. all in one? What's the difference? It doesn't combine it. It just makes them out of separate maps. That's kind of a intro to production art type conversation, but it will export like your normal map, your base color, which is your poly paint, or your vertex color, which can be material IDs or any painting you've done. Again, those links that I sent out, where I mean, I've actually done that. You know, I've transferred out poly paint to use as, I think it's on my creature sculpt maybe. Haven't done it in a while, but it's in there. I assume I'm streaming on everything I should be. Let me see. Restream is real hit or miss. Let's see here. It says Twitch online, Facebook sending data. Facebook rarely ever works, and YouTube online. Although my chat, my chat's getting Twitch and YouTube. So I think everything's working. It's not giving me a very accurate count, but it's not a huge deal. Let me see. Error Facebook, YouTube, Twitch connected. As far as I know, it's working. Oh, okay, cool. Hard surface video viewers, you mentioned that with pointy objects, maybe better to retop instead of ZRemesh and ZRemesh control. With pointy stuff, you always retop in ZBrush. Not always. I use whatever makes sense. For sometimes it's easier for me to retop in ZBrush because I don't have to like take a 30 million polygon mesh, decimate it down so it doesn't choke, you know, Max, Maya, Moto, Blender, TopoGun, any of that stuff. I just do it in ZBrush quickly with ZSpheres. And that's why I have the ZSphere menu in here. So, you know, BTO can be, you know, quick topology, but it's not quite as exact as I may want it to be. So that's when I go in here and say, I guess we'll go back to something a little more. Append ZSphere. We're probably going to go across symmetry, so turn on X symmetry, select the ZSphere, scale it down with E, go in here to my ZSphere menu, density down, Dynamesh resolution down, edit topology. I like to do like maybe a mid-gray so I can see a little bit better. If I want to see edges on a hard surface model, maybe matte cap pearl, and then I can literally go through here and just start drawing my topology on here. And this is also useful if I want to go like across a gap. I can just jump down a gap and then I can bridge, you know, this geo. And it doesn't even have to be perfect geometry because I can, or it can be just representative geometry and go back and forth and back and forth. And back here, if I want to go around here, and then maybe down and over, and then I can kind of just start deciding where I want my cuts to be. And I'm just kind of tapping off. This is all found on my, if you need a little bit of a slower step-by-step, it's on my YouTube channel. just do ZSphere topology or just topology in the search bar. So here is our topology. We can hit W and scoot these things around. It'll stick to the surface. And if I'm good to go, I can hit A for my adaptive skin, preview it, everything looks good. Go ahead and say make adaptive skin, append that skin ZSphere here. I can continue working as well. This ZSphere, I'm just going to drop it below, turn this one off, go in here and say delete topology and just keep going. So now I want to do exact same ZSphere already set up for me, go back into draw mode, and there I go. I'm doing topology. Now, is it as fancy as like quad draw or anything like that? No, but by the time I got it over there just to do this kind of simple stuff, it's probably not worth it, right? Now, that may not be the case on a more complex object. And honestly, I don't even retopologize heads ever. You know, I have a mesh that has human topology, and you'd use Wrap 3D, Wrap X or whatever it's called, and just boop, 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 put that awesome geometry with awesome UVs to your sculpt, and you're done. You don't have to retopologize a human being every time. I mean, you can if you're really bored, but I'm rarely ever bored. So append, well, I'm bored when I'm retopologizing humans over and over. So if I'm done with that ZSphere, delete it out of my scene here, and then now I have this topology and this topology. Now, if you're using ZSphere topology, it's going to have double turned on by default. That's under your display properties double. Turn that off because it'll bite you. See how that one is flipped on one side and not flipped on the other? So you can, with X symmetry turned off, you can select one side of your mesh and then say flip. It'll also store morph targets on these by default. Morph target delete. So here I'm going to turn double back on so I can see it. It's like this mesh here, I can flip, and now we're good. We can turn double off and then flip the same way. Or you can literally just have one side of your mesh, geometry modified topology, delete hidden, and then just geometry modified topology, mirror and weld. So there you go. And then we can go through here and say, and this is where you go in and you can do cleanup. Like, oh, you know what? I didn't actually want that one. No problem. Just delete a poly, delete a poly. You can go through here and you can move stuff around. And in fact, I think with the Z modeler brush, move, snap to surface, you can turn on. So as you're moving it, it'll actually snap to surface. If you go through here and say insert single edge loop, and then you go back to in your points here, you don't even actually have to switch back, which is nice. So in my brush menu, you'll see I have a ZM topology that has edge set up to extrude. So I can extrude along the surface of my mesh. And when I extrude, let's go ahead and go into transparency so you can see what I'm doing. As I'm extruding, it's snapping to things next to it. So you can very quickly go through here and then you can move, and move is set to brush radius, snap to surface, attraction. So if I want to go through here and snap this and then move it along my surface, snap these up. You should be able to, maybe not, snap, there we go. Snap these together, move the verts around. I'm going to go ahead and just do an uncrease because it's gross looking. So you can use that method if you'd like, and then you can just say bridge edges. Yeah, topology, everybody. It's fun. Not really. I've been in your tutorial for weeks now, still not tired of your voice. Oh, you will get I'm tired of my voice. Of course, I live with it, but you will be tired of my voice, I promise. Met Gorilla tutorial retops with Maya. Yes, good point. So, thank you. Mechanical skull, I did do that. So in this, here's the hard surface, substance painter, rendering. If you want the whole thing, I think, yeah, on Gumroad, has a little bit more high-res information, and then the painter bakes, oh, that's not right. It has the original high-res organic on there, and then the game res, retopologizing, UV mapping, marmoset baking, all sorts of stuff in there. So check that out if that looks interesting to you. Sorry if I missed anything. I have to scroll up a lot after I post a link, and I might miss something. Yes, but yeah. hollow out a model, I want to be able to specifically how thick I want the walls for 3D printing. That would be one way. Delete, delete. So I want to hollow out this head, split hidden, and you're probably working with more geometry than this, so I'm going to say Dynamesh, a little more than that. There we go. So we have a 3D model printed head that we want to hollow out. One way you can do it is go in here to our cylinder, and you can pull out a cylinder, and you can do, oh, this is such a pain. Go in here to polygroups and do group as Dynamesh sub with just this one showing, and then before you Dynamesh, go into create shell, and that'll create a shell thickness. Of course, like you said, you can't necessarily control that. If you go in here to W and then Y to go into Transpose brush, if you have your Transpose set up, preferences, Transpose units, if you have this set up for millimeters, you know, you can click, you go along here and you can say, oh, that's or 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters or whatever. You can measure that distance. However, for the manual, what you can do is you can, or with a little bit more control maybe, you can duplicate this off. And again, I'm not a 3D printing expert. There's probably more elegant ways to do this, but off the top of my head, what's the way I'm gonna duplicate this off twice. I'm gonna hold down Control Shift, grab this one, delete hidden. I'm just gonna clean up this mask border, invert that, polish by features, and then we're just going to do a quick ZBrush half, adapt the size down to 0. I'm just going to get like a little post in here. So Q mesh, polygroup all, and ZBrush half one more time. So we have a little neck stump on here. And I'm going to say Q mesh polygroup all, hold down shift and pull this in a little bit. And this is also a place where you can measure. So if like you want a lip that's a certain distance, it's like, okay, that's the distance I want to. Again, you'd have to set up your transpose units, but you can use this as a measuring guide to go, okay, that's how thick I want the lip on my mesh. And then I'm gonna do a quick group by normals, crease, PG, Control D a couple times, and I'm going to merge this head down, this duplicated head down. And I'm going to do just a little more resolution here. Dynamesh those together. So now I have a mesh with a little stump poking out. So now as far as the radius, I can go through here and I can deflate this one. Oh, it's going to get my stump, isn't it? The stump, maybe do the stump after this. Basically what I'm trying to do is you can turn this into a Boolean mesh, turn on live Boolean, and as you, or let's do this, W solo mode. As we scale this in and scale it in this way, you can, oh, I forgot. BTR, regular transpose, not transpose cloth. Scale this in, scale this in. You're controlling that depth here. You know, so this is a live Boolean, but you're able to control, and you can even go in here with your move brush and like move this Boolean around. Let's go and turn X back on. So you control the thickness of the mesh. Now, you know, I don't know. And you could even, you know, go in here to polish by, if you don't need all that detail built in, polish by features, just tap, just to kind of clean that up a little bit. And then you can create your Boolean, make Boolean mesh. So now here's your actual Boolean mesh where you had your duplicate that was a live Boolean. You controlled the thickness and all that. Might be a little bit overkill. And again, there might be a more elegant way from the 3D printing live streamers to do that type of thing. However, you can also just do that in or any number of 3D things. Let me see if I have that. Yeah, I do. So if we have a head, let's go ahead and say delete head here. And again, you know, if you've got polygroups on here and you don't have to worry about that, then I just, you know, try to export as an FBX. But if we go in here to preferences again, import, export, export, turn off group, and then when you export your OBJs, it won't split your stuff up. So if we do OBJ onto my desktop here, and then go back in here, and then I wonder if I can just drag it in. Yeah. And then we can go through here. Sorry. And we can say rotate. Woo. Move. Nope. Y. Z. Oh, it's Z up, huh? And then somewhere in here, I don't do this a whole lot, you can dig holes, you can hollow things. If you need your resin to drip out, you know, you guys will be more, have more information on this than I probably do, but you can poke a hole in here, add hole, say right, I don't know, right there. Oh, it's not hollowed out. So first, hollow it out. Wall thickness, 2 millimeters. We'll do that. And then we can look at it. So we can kind of scrub through our mesh here. And there's our 2 millimeter thickness. And then also, we can go through there and we can say add a hole, whatever millimeter size you want. And if you want to print out the hole because you want to plug it up later, feel free. But now you have your thickness as well as the hole you popped out. So something to consider. Again, I'm not a 3D printing expert, but the little I know just enough to be dangerous. My hotkeys, my UI you can get on Gumroad under ZBrush files, but I don't know if I've updated that recently. It's intro to ZBrush files. My hotkeys are just these. Z startup hotkeys. Yes. Can you just sit and last you 24/7? So I have to wait every 3 weeks for my fixes. When I retire, which I got to win the lottery first. Remove the option to not load the last project you're working on all the time. Did they move that option preference to the auto load and last project can't find it? It should be under, ooh, it's a good one. Preferences. I think they turned it off by default. So it should be off in 2021.7. Oh, Z preferences startup auto reload recent project. Turn that off. And then make sure you do a preferences config, store config. I wouldn't mind a live-in butler. That would be pretty cool. But you'd get real tired. You'd get real tired of me, I think. Yes. Give me an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice changer. I'm a 90s kid. Well, I'm an 80s born kid, but a lot of my formative years were like 88 to 94. Shell command, like in the solid modelers. Yeah, that was the shell Dynamesh, but again, I'd probably do that after the fact. If you had to choose to specialize in 3D for some reason, what would it be? Forensic crime scene recreation. Yeah. Cool. So we've done a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to look through here one more time and see if there's a, yeah, you know what, we'll do this. So the Loomis stuff, he's got the ones with the little circular hips. You can do also, this is like the wooden mannequin we brought up earlier. We've kind of done this version where it's like the little gray guys, but they're not super detailed. But in order to do something more detailed, it wouldn't be that hard. It would be kind of the same process. We'll do a little bit. We'll do a quick one. So for here, we'll go into Load Tools from Project because I like my settings. ZBrush, Projects, Mail. So depending on the type of information you want to see, we can go through here and we can go into our clay buildup brush, go in here to stroke. Roll distance of 5 maybe. Smooth that stroke out a little bit. I think I learned that from Magdalena if I'm remembering correctly. So we can go through here. Again, I'm going to use my Damien standard brush, Dam Standard 2, which again you can download from the internet. I think Gumroad has it. And you can go through here and you can start chopping up, you know, whatever kind of information you'd want to see. You can go through here and you can start adding, like, okay, here's that rib cage, and then here's the back pillars if I want that information on there, and then my obliques through here, and then my anterior superior iliac spine through here, and then there's my kind of underwear portion that I may want to dig out. So you can kind of go through here really quickly and just kind of start dividing up your mesh like this. And if you wanted a leaner body type, one thing you can do, go in here to Control, Lasso, and let's say the hands and the feet don't have a whole lot of, you don't generally mess with those too much. We'll say Control Tap to really blur those masks, and then go in here to Deformation, Inflate, and we'll say -5 maybe, -5 again. Kind of lean him out just a bit. And then we may have to go back in here with our inflate brush. You know, we got the joint positions in there and the landmarks, so that's fine. You may see me going in here and turning off auto align surface. That's preferences, edit, turn off align cursor to surface, somewhere in there. That's what I'm doing, just in case you're wondering. So go through here. I'm going to plump out these just a little bit more, and then again go into our clay buildup brush. Maybe drop that Z intensity down, and we can start going through here and being like, okay, let's turn on perspective, because perspective bugs me. So here's our, again, just popping out the individual landmarks that we may want to see. That collarbone here to the chromium process, and then back here to your scapula. It's going to sit right in here ish, and then your trapezius around your C7, and then your little traps. They go up here, attached to that. What would that be? It's the bump on the back of your head, which means it's a the name escapes me. I need to do a refresher. So yeah, again, just kind of we'll make him into a RoboCop. There we go, a little RoboCop face. And again, if we want to simplify this just down to the bare essentials, that's when you can go through and do like a Dynamesh and smooth. And you could, if you don't have subdivision history, you can go in here to what is this called? Sculptors Pro mode, and you can kind of eat away at geometry in here. But the mouth, I may not want to do that. I wonder if I could do this. Let's go in here, let's try this. Inflate. Oof. Inflate with a very low Z intensity, Sculptors Pro off. Because I don't want to necessarily Dynamesh, because I don't want to snap these fingers together. Although the fingers are pretty far apart. The toes maybe not so much. Although, I don't know. Anyway, go through here and we'll do W, kind of like what we did earlier. Gear icon, remesh by union. And if you ever want to check, and this could go for 3D printing too, there may be a space in there, so I'm going to hold down Control Shift A, Geometry Modified Topology, Delete Hidden. And if you want to check your integrity, append a big old cube here, hit W, move it over to the side, set that to subtractive Boolean, and then you can kind of go through your mesh and just make sure it's all solid. So there's no holes or anything in there. Kind of like what we were doing with Chitu box earlier. Delete that, Boolean off. So we've sewn up the mouth. We didn't resort to Dynamesh, so we're good to go. So, and we've also reduced the face complexity quite a bit. And again, I'm going to do Sculptures Pro just to kind of even that geometry out, axisymmetry, mirror and weld. So we're kind of working around Dynamesh right now. And I'll turn Sculptures Pro off. So again, we have so there's the spine of the scapula here. We have our deltoid, which is going to attach here, and then actually this probably comes out a little bit further. So actually, arms are up. There's that acromion process flat, and then the clavicle, and then there's your big old sternum down your rib cage here. And again, we're kind of doing, this is kind of maybe a drawing comics the Marvel way, or that erotic manga, any of the manga books, monster book of manga stuff. That's all I'm referring to, really. I just happen to grab erotic manga because it's funny. So we got our traps here, and that's going to go to a point kind of mid-back, and then your lats are going to cut across the bottom of your scapula here, and that's and up into your armpit. And that's kind of actually a thin muscle, because you're going to see quite a bit of, from the inside back of your scapula forward to your serratus anterior, so kind of nipples out. You're going to have your serratus anterior here, and that's going to go into your obliques, which kind of pull across here, and then down here. So there's your obliques, and those will also kind of terminate underneath your lats here. Here's the big, your lats go over these, or at least kind of a sheath goes over this, but underneath you'll have those spinal erectors, and then you've got your sacrum right here, and then you've got your butt muscles, aka gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, around your great trochanter here, and then tensor fascia latae, and then your sartorius curves around here, and then these are your adductor muscles, and then your, what's this, patella, vastus medialis, vastus lateralis. You've got that sheath right along here, but underneath that sheath you're going to have that vastus lateralis again. And then your hamstrings back here, semitendinosus, semimembranosus, I believe. And then on the back here, this will be where the calves plug in, aka your boy, I am having a hard time. I really do need a refresher. You also got a bunch of stuff back in here, nerves and fat, so that'll kind of bow out a little bit. And then yeah, this is going to connect down around through here. On the body, this is going to be a little curvier on the inside. You got a lot of stuff connecting over that top of that tibia and the bottom of your fibula. Or I'm sorry, the top of the tibia and the bottom of your femur. And then on this side here, it's going to be a little closer to the surface. So it's actually going to be pretty flat. Here, you can even go in here with your H-polish brush and make that a little more obvious here. And then just a really, you got that nice curve of the tibia here, bones right up there next to the surface. You got high, low, high, low, high, low, and then high, low the opposite way. On this side, where your tibia is on the inside, your fibula is on the outside, drops a little bit lower, and then you've got that arch of the foot right there. Gastrocnemius, and the, what's the one on the inside? Think. I don't remember. And I'm just going to kind of make this shape. So this is going to be vastus medialis over, and then this one's going to connect a little higher here, And then depending on if you're flexed or not, this little shape right in here, your rectus femoris is here, and then your rectus abdominis is here, your abs. And that's going to be kind of following this pattern here. Not symmetrical, but we're lazy, right? And then here's the striations of the muscles in the pectoralis major, so sternal. And this does connect up underneath over about 3 fingers down from the head of the humerus, I think. So it is going to all point in that direction. And then down here, your 5th rib, I think, 5th or 6th rib, it'll connect up in there, and then the clavicular portion will come and fold down. You're going to have a space in between here, so that's your deltoid is going to attach around here. This portion of your deltoid, these are going to be like multipennate kind of muscles on this one, and then on the back, more deltoid. And then here, it's going to be a little flatter because the muscle belly is over here. This is more just tendons attaching, or ligaments, I forget which. And then this is your teres major. That's going to be a noticeable muscle. And then teres minor infraspinatus is going to be a little less noticeable. And again, we're just kind of blocking out that male, that emaciated male, or thinner, leaner male, I should say. Certainly not emaciated. And then in here, you might see a little bit of this muscle here. Attach up here, and then I do have an anatomy model I could use, right? These ones you're probably not going to see too much. And then on the arms here, we got our biceps, and then we got our brachialis. I'm going to use the move brush to kind of fix. When we leaned him out, he kind of got a little weird. Triceps, and that's actually going to tuck underneath the deltoid and then over the teres major, like so. And then of course you got that horseshoe shape, like so, and then this little flat area. So you got round muscle belly, flat ligament, pointy elbow, bone landmark, and then your brachialis, which actually goes through your arm, so you're going to see it. Let's do this. Shoulder, brachialis, bicep, tricep, and then in between these, I think, yeah, you've got your ridge muscles, brachioradialis, and the other, and then you've got your extensors along here, and then you've got this again pretty close to the surface, your ulna on the pinky side, your radius on the thumb side here, and depending on, and then your medial, it's 8 o'clock, I gotta go, and then your medial lateral epicondyle of your humerus, medial epicondyle of your humerus, your flexors, and then yeah, your ulna, you're going to see big bony indication through there. So again, flexors on the bottom, extensors along the top, through your little carpal tunnel on the inside, and then your little sheath on the back. And just keep doing that. Keep modifying this. You don't have to do everything perfect, or not perfect, but just getting something representative. You don't have to make it like, it's not really necessarily an anatomy study, it's more just getting the volumes where they need to be, so when you start going through and slicing, you can mannequinize what you're doing. And by kind of cleaning up, I just mean like going through here and kind of grab your clay buildup, drop that intensity down. You can smooth. So I'm going to drop my Z intensity down. I have smooth stronger turned on. That's under your smooth modifier brushes. Go through here and you can start, go back and forth and kind of dialing in, whatever you want to see. Happy little muscle striations in here. whatever details you want to put on there. And then you can decimate, ZBrush, Mannequinize, which we've already done, slice, close holes, all that good stuff. I'm going to save this one real quick so I can come back to it. Normally I'd go longer, but again, I have to run. I have a thing to do. Figure mannequin, we'll do lean, male, block out. So, yeah, it's the occipital protuberance, I think it's called. It's a protuberance, and that's that thing, possibly, of the skull. My most complicated project was probably that mech ZBrush Summit 20 something, 2018. It's the big mech thing in here, ZBrush Summit 2018. So there's a tutorial series in here. It's got a lot of stuff in there you can check out. Cool. Yes, Choo-Choo Box Slicer. Yes, knife lasso tool. That's another one too. Good point. Super useful. This knife curve brush. Use it all the time. You can get really, really nice slices and actually decent geometry as well. That's a 2021.7, so check those ones out. Cool. Have you had much of it go on Blender since all? No, I haven't. Blender's one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm gonna learn it. 5 years later, I'm gonna learn it. So, forearm muscles, extensors, flexors, ridge muscles. Close enough. Thanks, everybody. I'll head out. You guys have a good rest of your day. And I'll be back next month, or maybe sometimes this month if I